right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Today is Monday, April 4th, 2022, and you are now watching A Deeper PTE. I am your host, PTE, also known as Permission to Exist, and this is the unofficial follow up show to the show that we did last night on Permission to Exist, entitled Sick and Dangerous Men Fixation. And in that show, a couple of different things came up and came out that really were better suited for this channel. And so we're here to discuss them tonight. So this is sort of kind of after show, but it's also slightly different because in this show, I'm going to share with you guys a theory that I've kind of been gnawing on for a long time. And I think that it all comes together in the context of the discussion that we were having last night. Thank you. It says that was a great show. Thank you so much. And hello to everyone in the chat. I stopped moving around during the intro so I didn't mess the song up. And it appears to be working. So if I didn't greet you, hello and welcome to the show. So let's jump right into it and dive right into the topic. So last night on Permission to Exist, we talked about basically the manosphere, the incel community, the pickup artists, the toxic males that have taken over the internet and social media communities. And we discussed a lot of different things about them. We reviewed the Department of Homeland Security's report, which was a case study on one individual in particular, but they brought out a bunch of different characteristics and traits that they all share. And they made a point to say that just because they don't self identify as manosphere or incel, it's really not about that. And it's more about the shared beliefs and the aligned belief system that qualifies them for these groups. So we got into all of that and we started talking about how many of them act like they've been ripped from the source. And someone in the chat said that basically they need to parasite off of women to feel alive. And I don't know if they said this or if I said this, but I wrote here, it's like they're starving to death and the only thing that can feed them is a woman. I might have said that, but I'm not sure. But I know for a fact the first part came from a viewer. They need to parasite off of a woman to feel alive and really truly be alive. So with that in mind, it got me to thinking, and it kind of took me back to an old theory that I had never really shared before. I kind of shared part one, and I would almost consider this to be part two of that theory. So, why does this specific group of males act like they have been ripped from the source? I remember saying last night on last night's show that I do believe this is spiritual. There's a spiritual component to this. There's something spiritual going on here because the behavior itself just makes no sense. And it goes beyond all logic, all reason. They will take it to its ultimate destructive conclusion, be that jail or just flat out death. They'll take it all the way there to avoid something with the woman, to truly avoid some sort of consequence, some sort of outcome, to avoid having the woman win. It's like an ongoing ancient battle that they have been fighting for a very, very long time. And I do believe that this ancient battle is getting ready to reach its conclusion. So, before I get into why I believe we might be dealing with the fallen angels, let's take a look at a little bit of the evidence. The first bit of evidence is that there is always this desperate seeking for a relationship with a woman that in this type starts at a very young age. So like I said on that show last night, it's like you're talking to a young man, but it's like he has all these old man issues, all these old man worries and all these old man problems. Like he sounds like a 50-year-old man with two jobs, a mortgage, and bills, talking about, I can't get no woman. So it starts young, and it's a desperate seeking for a relationship. Like, if I don't have this, I cannot go on. And it's very strange because it's like, where did that even get installed? You know what I mean? Then, when you add in also the fact that many of them struggle with heavy consumption of prawn, and there have been numerous studies, talks, publications on the impact of prawn on a developing mind. But more than that, the constant need to see it, the need to, if I can't see it in person, I got to see it digitally always, to the point where it's like the background of their cell phone. If it's their home computer, the background of their home screen on their computer. They might have posters, if people still do posters, like a constant, the image of the woman has to constantly be in front of their face, always. Like, I don't look for or look at men like that. Like, when I come across an attractive one, I get excited, like, "Ooh, fun. He's cute." But I don't go on the internet looking for pictures of them. I certainly don't go looking for videos of them. I don't have posters of them hanging up around my house. They're not on any of my backgrounds. None of that. But it's the exact opposite when dealing with this particular set that we're talking about. So the constant consumption of prawn and things of that nature. And another little bit of evidence would be the rapid replacement of relationships. So this plays out in many different ways. So, one, often before they dump one girl, they already have another one lined up. And it's not because they like the next one so much, it's because there can be no gaps in performance. So, this would be for those who can actually get women to come around and get women to deal with them. They can't have any gaps. Those gaps are akin to death. Those gaps might as well be death when it comes to this particular group. The absence of a woman is death. Very interesting. And sorry, I forgot to mention this at the start. This whole theory that I'm going to share with you tonight also goes hand in hand with another theory of mine called God being a woman changes everything, and it does. So, if you look at it through the context of that theory, if God is a woman, then the absence of God is death. So think about that. But I might be getting ahead of myself. We'll see. We'll get there. So the same thing happens in marriage. Often when they are married, they're getting ready to divorce, they quickly find a woman to fill in that slot and fill in the role. And it's not about love, attraction, being better than or less than the woman that came before. It is literally about the fact that men like these cannot experience gaps in the presence of that woman. There can be no gaps. The gaps are almost like a death, a soul death at that. So, this kind of tiptoes into the theory also when we covered empty seaters on this channel a couple years ago. And those are people who essentially say that they have no inner voice and they really don't like being alone because when they're alone, it really highlights the fact that they have no inner voice. So they like to be out in groups and with people all the time because the outside world is what stimulates their inside. The outside world is what stimulates their inner world, basically. So there's an element of empty seaters there as well. So, with all that in mind, it really leads me to believe, from a spiritual perspective, we might be dealing with and contending with the fallen angels. And now I'm going to get into my list of reasons why I think that might be. So, for one, they behave like a group of people who have been kicked out of their homeland, never to return, and not allowed to come back either. So imagine how that group of people would behave when they have essentially lost their home. And where was home? At one point in time, home was heaven. with God, in the presence of God. At one point in time, things were perfect. Life was perfect for them. No worries, no cares, no death, no hunger, no starvation. Nothing like that. None of the earthly concerns that we have. None of that. No sickness, nothing. Pure and total perfection was home. And as a result of their behavior, they got kicked out. Now, to reference the Bible, I really think we're onto something here because it takes me to Revelation starting at 12 and verse 7 in the King James Version, where it says, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, who deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." So it actually goes on beyond that, and I didn't put it all on here, but let me continue reading. "And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ, for the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, and times, and half a time, from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So that is Revelation 12, verses 7 through 17. And for many, many years, I've thought about this passage, in particular, the part where it talks about he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man child. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into a place where she'll be nourished for a time and half a times from the face of the serpent. So she's hidden, basically. She went into hiding to hide from this psychopath. But then it goes on to say that the dragon was wroth, meaning furious, angry, really upset with the woman, and went on to make war with the remnant of her seed, the leftover of her seed. Now, Christian and biblical interpretation typically indicate that to mean Israel. It's never an actual woman. Anytime a woman is brought up in the Bible, it's always something else. It's never an actual woman, ever. Pay attention. It's never a woman. It's always something else. So the Christian interpretations that I've heard of this through the years are that the woman is Israel, and the kingdom of Israel, or the house of Israel, is representative of the woman, and that's who is in hiding, and hiding from the serpent, so forth and so on. But I just have never really fully bought that. I've never actually 100% bought into the notion that they weren't actually talking about a woman, and talking about the remnant of her seed, which I personally think might be women. Like even in Genesis, it says that Satan planned on making war with her seed. I'm paraphrasing that one. But anyway, so it makes me think of this. The question of the evening is, are we dealing with the fallen angels? So again, why were they kicked out of their home? Why were they kicked out of their place of residence that was supposed to be permanent? Several reasons. One, treason, treachery, and probably above all, jealousy was the reason that they were kicked out of heaven. If you will recall, and I don't know the exact verses by heart, but essentially, Lucifer decided that he wanted to run heaven. He wanted to be in charge. He wanted God's place. I think the Bible says he wanted to sit above God or sit above the throne or something to that effect. So what happened was he got jealous and prideful, correct? And his jealousy so got the best of him that he literally got together, was able to convince a bunch of other angels to go against God. Now, most people have a masculine understanding of God, and I don't make war with that. I just have a different interpretation. And honestly, my theory makes everything else make so much more sense. And if you read the Bible thinking that God might be a woman, oh man, you start to truly understand God's plight. You really do. But that's a different show. I need to write that down. Understanding God's plight. Because when you understand God's plight through the filter of a woman, it makes perfect sense. All of it, every single bit of it makes sense, including what we're going through down here on earth. Because remember, as above, so below, as in heaven, so on earth. I know that's not exactly how it's said, but something to that effect. As it is in heaven, so be it in earth, something to that effect. So it's almost like we are a microcosm of what is happening on a macro level. And oh, it's so deep. You have to watch the first episode I did on this. But it makes perfect sense. Whose image is getting harassed constantly? The woman. Whose image are they always trying to erase? The woman. Who are they always mimicking, copying, copycatting? The woman. So, oh man, it's so deep. So, anyway, they got kicked out for all of those reasons because you have to understand the level of betrayal. It's almost like, excuse me, imagine being a homeowner and you bought a beautiful house and you fixed it up, you decorated it, all that. You fully stock it with food, water, drinks, everything. It's a great place to be. And you invite in some of your closest friends and family to either come live with you or just come celebrate with you. And then somewhere along the course of that time frame, they turn on you in your house and start stealing from you, lying on you, just doing a whole lot of treacherous, backbiting type stuff. And then eventually they get together and decide they're going to overthrow you in your house, though. Understand that they're in your house. So the level of betrayal, of trust, is a level that can't be returned from. You can't come back from that because I believe God had extended to them the ultimate trust, 100% trust. No reason to ever watch you, spy on you, follow you around because I trust you that much. I trust you with my life, basically. And you tried to kill me. So, no, you can't come back ever. Like you're done. You're completely finished. No, the gates are closed in this image. So they're very, 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 very upset about that. And I think when dealing with this particular group of men that we're talking about, I think they know they've been kicked out of heaven forever. They know. And the type of behavior that produces out of a person is a very desperate person, a very angry person, a very performative person, and a person who is always begging. So when we hear them complain day in and day out on the internet, essentially what they're doing is pleading and begging, you guys. They are begging for women to accept them and take them back and don't hold them accountable for their actions. Love me as I am, even though I'm destructive AF, even though I am treacherous and treasonous and jealous and backstabbing and backbiting and high minded and want to overthrow you, please accept me anyway. And the answer is no, and forever will be no after what they did. So they're doing what any fallen angel in that position would do, which is make war with God's image, with the image of God, or at least, according to my theory, there might be two of them: mom God, mother God, and father God. There could be two, as above, so below. But the issue is, mother God is actually in charge. And that's the problem. That is the problem. Mama God is the one in charge of all. And Father God had a very important position, just like they do on planet Earth, but he wanted to be in charge. He wanted to be king of the kingdom. And that was a problem. And is that not what we see here on earth? I have another theory. This is a separate theory, but I believe a lot of men actually really do want to be fathers. They want to be dads, but they don't want you in the picture. They don't want to be bothered with the mom. They don't want her chirping in and chiming in and talking about how she wants to see the kids raised and giving her opinion on how she wants to see her children raised. They don't want all that extra feedback. They want to be the only one in charge of their kingdom. It's the same problem. It just keeps repeating itself over and over and over again until we get it, until we actually see it. Like, to me, I feel like I see it crystal clear. I hope I explain it clearly, but in my mind's eye, I see it completely 100% clearly. The issue here on earth, a lot of men absolutely want to be dads. There's a lyric in a Jay-Z song that I actually really like called Daddy Dearest. Wait, is that Daddy Dearest or Jay-Z Blue? Either way, one of them, he says, something, something, something. If it was up to me, you would be with me. Something like Daddy Dearest. And in that same song, he says, let me just look up the lyrics. Daddy Dearest lyrics. Basically, that he's not into the whole joint custody, the whole joint custody thing. He's not into it. No, it's called Jay-Z Blue is the name of the song. Daddy Dearest is the hook. Let's see here. Ooh. Mm, 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 mm. Baby's getting chubby. Here it is. It says, cue that Stevie Wonder music. Aw, isn't she lovely? Now I'm staring at her praying that things don't get ugly. And I'm stuck in that old cycle like wife leaves hubby. Fuck joint custody. I need a joint right now. Just the thought alone fucks with me. High on life. I could die from the fall. Imagine if I hit the floor. They know who they are. Apologies in order to Blue Ivy, my daughter. If it was up to me, you would be with me, sort of like Daddy Dearest. So, what he's basically saying, this whole song is about how marriage relationships tend to kind of go south. And he's not into the whole idea of joint custody with Beyonce, basically. If it was up to him, the kids would be with him. And I cannot tell you how many men actually feel this way. They want the kids, they don't want you as part of the picture. Thank you so much for giving birth to the kids. Now you can run along and I'll raise these children on my own. I can be a better mother than you. I can be mommy and daddy to the children. I'm telling you it's the truth. I'm telling you, I'm telling you what I know in my heart and soul. That's what they want. So, but they'll tolerate you being a mom. Okay, fine. Be all mothery, whatever. They'll tolerate it, but a lot of them really don't like it. They would much prefer to be the only one calling the shots, basically. So, anyway, they got kicked out of heaven. Treachery, treason, jealousy, and everything else in between. So, why can't they come back? Well, for the reasons listed above, but also because they are unrepentant and they hate the one who actually makes the rules, which is God. They hate the rule maker. That's why you see them go against life in so many different ways here on earth. If you pay attention to them and how they lead their lives, they're very anti life and sometimes literally anti life. They like to do things opposite of what makes sense. They like to go against the natural order. And in my opinion, the reason they do is because it's a way of kind of thumbing their nose up at God. Like, haha, we went against your natural order and we're still here. We're still alive. We're thriving and we're not even doing things your way. And to me, she's like, well, that's fine, but you'll never make it back home again. And I think there's a huge part of them, and this would be the delusional, arrogant side of them, that truly believes that they can probably talk their way back into heaven. I think they have a chance, some of them. Some of them know. And I think the ones who know there's no hope are the ones who probably become the most terrible. But a lot of the ones who are walking the fence, they're going to hold out a little bit of hope that they might be able to sweet talk their way back into the kingdom. But the issue is on Judgment Day, assuming there's going to be a massive Judgment Day, when God is sitting there questioning you and God is sitting there asking you questions, where are you going to run? Because you know it's so characteristic for them to flee from accountability, flee from responsibility, flee from ownership. They are always in flight, always. So, because they're always in flight, here on earth, that's fine because, on earth, they can avoid and duck other humans. They can duck and dodge and run around other people, basically. But, oh man, on on earth, excuse me, in heaven, when you are faced off with the Most High God, where are you going to go? And I believe even in that very moment, they are not going to be able to bring themselves to say, yes, I did that. Here's the reason I did it. Here's why. You know, I take responsibility. Yeah, I was responsible for that. Even in that very moment, they're not going to be able to do it, you guys. They're not. And that's what's going to get them ultimately thrown into the pit. It's like you're standing before the Most High God. And unlike what you did on planet Earth, you're not going to duck accountability here. Let me send this on PTE real quick. Oh, all right. So we just invited the folks from PTE, might be popping in here momentarily. So anyway, that's ultimately what's going to do it. Like, have y'all ever been in a relationship that if they could have just said either I'm sorry or yes, that was me, or yes, I did that. If they could have done that, if they could have just brought themselves to confess, to admit it, that you may have actually forgiven them. But the fact that they couldn't even say, I'm sorry, or I was wrong, or I apologize. You see what I mean? That's how it was with my college ex. I was like, if you could, at minimum, just tell me what I'm upset about, which I've articulated to you many times. Can you tell me what I'm upset about? He couldn't do it, either couldn't or wouldn't. And that was ultimately what just completely ended us, because I'm like, I'm not going to deal with someone who can't take accountability, responsibility, and won't even have the conversation. You're going to have the conversation with the Most High God, though. You are. Okay. So they are unrepentant, number one. They won't confess and own up to their mistakes and choices. And they absolutely hate the one who made the rules, the one who designed the whole thing. They hate that. And if God is a woman, doesn't that make that much more sense? A woman or a feminine entity designed all of this. The sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the universe, the plants, the animals, the trees, the grass, the food, and ultimately and finally, human beings. She designed human beings. And that is the ultimate. And I think, I'm not sure who it is, so I won't say who I think it is, but someone in the chat always says that that is scientists' ultimate like achievement. They're trying to figure out the human body. It is their ultimate, basically puzzle. And it frustrates them so that they cannot replicate it. Now, can you imagine how much more it would frustrate them if the designer was a woman? Think about it. If the designer of the human body, which kind of nature kind of tells you that in a way, who carries the babies? Yes, the man impregnates us, but ultimately, whose body stitches everything together and pushes it out? She keeps trying to tell you. So, the ultimate creator, the ultimate designer might be a feminine entity. So, can you imagine in the very patriarchal scientific sciences, the knowledge that the one who designed it all is a female? Ooh, man, that seems like it would really do a number. And it seems like you would go to war with that idea and possibly spend your whole entire life trying to do better or trying to supersede and overcome the woman who designed all of this and put you in this situation. The woman did this to you. It's almost like they're really, really, really pissed off that a woman did this to them. Okay? So, on top of all of that, they also have no morals. They're very lawless individuals. So, part of the reason they have no morals now is because they have absolutely nothing to lose at this point. So, this is what makes them so hollow. This is what makes them so shallow. This is why you really can't appeal to their humanity, because they're thinking about their very soul, which has been doomed. So, if you've been doomed, absolutely, then what good are you? What point is morals? If you know your morals aren't going to get you into heaven, why have any? And I think that's the position that they take, because they're like, well, if I'm a good person, I'm already doomed. So I might as well do what I want. And a lot of them do. So that's kind of the high level. As a summary, essentially, I think the sick and dangerous men that we are dealing with and have been dealing with in the world could quite possibly be the fallen angels themselves. Part of the reason I believe this is their obsessive fixation on the woman. They never look at the men who are causing them problems in this world. For example, there's a conflict brewing overseas, and primarily, if not 100%, it's nothing but men behind all of it. There's men in the one country that starts with a U. There's a man leading up that. There's a man leading up the country that starts with the R. There's a man over here leading this one. A bunch of men have gotten together and are pushing us closer and closer to a global conflict. All men. They never blame the men, though. I'm surprised they haven't found a way to blame women for that, though. But they don't blame the men for that. They don't blame the men who set the prices, the business owners, the CEOs often, who make life so expensive for everybody. They typically don't blame those men, the men who hang out on Wall Street, things like that. They don't blame them. They don't blame men for anything, really. They blame they blame women for all of their problems. And as I said on both the news break and the show last night, whoever you blame all your problems on is your leader. That is your leader. Whoever you place blame at the feet of, and if you place all your blame at the feet of that person or that entity, that is your leader. So, because women are apparently responsible for everything, that makes us your leader. And it also very well serves my theory that God could possibly be a woman. And I just wanted to say, if God turns out to be a man, I mean, so be it. I wouldn't be upset. That's how I was raised, to believe God was a man. So if it turns out that God is a man, I'll be like, oh, well, I guess I was wrong. And that'll be that. But can you imagine, for those of you who do believe there's going to be a rapture or a judgment day or something to that effect, can you imagine the sky rolling back like a scroll and a woman standing on the other side? Can you imagine the reaction? That's your meditation for the evening. If the sky parts and rolls back like a scroll and it's a woman standing there, what impact do you think that's going to have on the world? What impact do you think that's going to have? Oh man. The Bible says people's hearts will fail them for fear on that day. That people will be so terrified and so afraid and so scared that they're just going to have heart attacks and die. And I always used to think that was because the event itself will be so scary. I mean, you look up, the sky is rolling back like a scroll, and there's all these beings and entities and the Most High God standing there, flying, floating, who knows? You're probably seeing things your eyes have never seen in your entire life. It's going to be really freaky. But I don't think that's why people are going to have heart attacks and die. I think the reason they're going to have heart attacks and die is because they're going to be like, oh my God, it's a woman. Oh no. And they're going to think about everything they've ever said about women, done to women, all the ill that they've spoken against women and girls, the evil that they brought to women and girls, the platforms that they've created to dog out the image of the Most High God, and you devoted your life to that. You documented it for the world to see, and you promoted that. And some people have actually sown into those ministries. Oh, all those people are going down with them. The people who help prop these evil, wicked men up, oh, they're all going with them. Like every time Tommy Sotomayor gets one of his channels deleted, which he just had multiple channels deleted, he propped a new one back up and they repopulated it instantly. You're all going to burn in hell with him. You are. But imagine, see, I think men, if a man is standing there, a masculine God, to them, it'll just be like their new general. Like, ah, yes, and there he is. Wonderful. Hello, God. I'm here to serve you. And that's super easy, right? You roll the sky back, and there's a man or a masculine entity, and it'll just be like, okay, perfect. There's there's a man. And I like to follow men, and I follow men. And so, perfect. I'll just follow the ultimate man. Hello, God, man. But, baby, can you imagine if it's a woman? Do you think they're going to fall in line so quickly? I think the Bible says only 144,000 people are going to get into heaven, if I'm not mistaken. So, oh, the women are going with them too. It says, what about the women that supported this patriarchy? They're going to burn with them too. But very few people are actually going to get into heaven. And I think that might be part of the reason why. Because they will be so shocked and so stunned to see a woman that they'll just be like, nope, there's no way I'm going to serve a woman for all eternity. No way. There's no way I am going to bow down to a woman for eternity. There's no way. There's some of them who just won't be able to do it. And they'll go with their daddy Satan to hell. So it's just a theory. I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's correct. It's just a theory and something I actually think about all the time. All the time. And along that thread, chat says even other women. I mentioned on some show as of recent that I think part of why we're here or what we're going through is there might be some punishment involved. It's either punishment or it's like trying to open our eyes by letting us experience these things over and over again. It's like you don't see the pattern, you don't see what you're dealing with, you don't see the spiritual nature of this. My dear daughters, wake up. Trying to wake you up before that day comes, because so many women are going to follow these men right to the gates of hell. They are. And it's like, how many times does he have to mistreat you before you start to make a connection? And before you start to see a pattern emerge? You see what I mean? I think she's trying to get us to see the pattern. Okay. So I want to transition into something else really quick that I also brought up on last night's show on Permission to Exist. And that is the issue of demonic portals. In that show, when we were reading the report from the Department of Homeland Security, the mom of SB, who was the main character in the case study, told his roommate he must have really liked you because he didn't kill you. And in that show, I said, ladies, what are we giving birth to? What did you give birth to, girl, for you to be able to say something like that? For you to be able to say, he must have really liked you because he didn't kill you. Wow. Thanks, Mom. So it led to a discussion, or I posed the question on that show last night. I said, is it possible that we can accidentally give birth to demons and it have nothing to do with our DNA? And honestly, it's just an open question that I'm throwing out there. I am curious and very, very concerned that we could accidentally portal in these demons and there be nothing that we can really do about it. I'm a firm believer in doing your best to select your mate wisely and try to select a mate who's got some good characteristics worth reproducing. You basically want to select a mate who you want to see in the world again. So, if the father of your children, if you haven't had his kids yet, the man you're dating, the man you're married to, whatever, if you haven't had his kids yet, you need to ask yourself, does does this man need to be here again? Does he need to be here again? Would this man here on earth need to be here again? Yes or no? So that's kind of how I look at it. But I wonder, and I sincerely wonder, if it's possible we can accidentally give birth to demons and we have no control over it whatsoever. I don't have an answer to this question. And I also would not know how to prevent it. The only way I thought to prevent it was to try to choose a man with good sense, good character, some kind of integrity that you would want to reproduce on planet Earth. You would want to see that again, or 2 or 3 times again, because he's that good of a person. But now I'm starting to wonder, because for this woman to have given birth to a child that can make you look at someone else and say, oh, he must have really liked you because he didn't kill you. tells me that we might be portaling in demons. So the question becomes, is that possible? Do we have any control over the soul that enters the body? And see, I don't think we do, you guys. I don't think we do have control over the soul that enters the body. And that's scary to me because that means you could get any child. You could literally give birth to a little angel, or you could give birth to a little demon. And from what I understand, people who grow up to be real problems, some of them, like you could almost tell from birth. Like they're like the kid was just never really comfortable in their skin, always screaming, you know, just a lot of little traits that you might write off like, well, it's an infant, it's a newborn, they're colicky, it was hungry, you know what I mean? But it's almost like the parents say they could just tell. And a lot of times these kids would freak them out even when they were little. They would freak them out. So, I don't know. But it's a question. And I think it's something we need to be concerned with if you're of childbearing age. Look at the people that have been portaled in so far. Look who's here already. Look who came through already. And it's like, whoa, I think we need to pause. We need to recalibrate a little bit. Kevin, I don't think they're ready yet. I don't think they're ready for that one. It says, here's an even deeper level. Will the female god have an ethnicity, and what will her skin color be? Kevin, I don't think they're ready yet. I don't think they're ready. I'll wait another year and then I'll drop that one on you. I don't think they're ready, but Kevin, you might be right there. You might be ready, Kevin. But chat says, give birth to Damien. Was that a movie? Y'all know me in movies. It sounds familiar. Oh, Damien from The Omen. Okay. Is that what happened in that? Is that what happened in that movie? Boom. Mrs. James got it. Says, whichever woman is the most persecuted on this earth. There's your answer. Bible says something about the last shall be the first. And there's one group of men that really loves to tell their women how they are the bottom, how they're the bottom. Nobody wants them. They're the absolute bottom of all society. The least this, the least that, the least this, the least that, last in this, last in that, last in this, last in that. Well, the Bible says the last shall be the first. I really wonder what that means. I dwell on that one a lot too. I really do. No, I understood what you meant. Persecuted. I understood what you meant. But, we'll go there in like another year. Let me fortify that part of it's not really a theory to me. To me, it's borderline fact, but I understand that there's a lot of religious dogma to cut through. But anyway, are we accidentally portaling in demons to this realm? And if so, how and why? Chat, I just saw something said you should only have a child. That's why you should only conceive a child with a person Yah has ordained right for you. Right. And the way I kind of interpret that and look at that is, so I'm still of childbearing age. I could probably have a child for within the next 10 years or so, safely and comfortably. But I absolutely refuse to initiate that process. So I'm not looking, I'm not in search. And I say all the time, Lord, I am open to marriage. I'm open to a relationship. I'm open to family and children, but I absolutely will not go looking for it. So if that's something you want to see happen, you're literally probably going to have to drop it off on my doorstep. Probably. Like, it'll be something that I literally kind of have to just walk into, and it's already done. Not like a ready-made family. That's not what I mean. And no offense to ready-made families. It's not what I mean. What I mean is he and I just meet, we click, and it's just like one foot in front of the other. We date for a few months. He pops the question with a ring, you know, meets my parent, like everything would have to literally go step, 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 or else I'm not doing it. Any weirdness, he's out. Any strangeness, he's out. Any creepiness, he's out. Any signs of this, of him coming through a demonic portal, mm-mm, out. So very, very low tolerance and very zero tolerance as well. I'm like, that's a mighty high wall to jump, most high. So, you know, like he would literally have to be dropped off, packaged like with FedEx on my doorstep. So, exactly, let your will be done type of energy. Exactly. I'm not forcing it and I'm not trying to bring it to pass. And I 100% accept if the answer is no in this life. 100%. My only request is that you replace him with some money. Come on. Replace, fine. No marriage, no kids, fine. Can you please replace both with money? So I can at least luxuriate in this here life until we cross on over, you know? But I'm not trying to force it because I am so concerned about this demonic portal, honey. And I personally really believe that when we try to force things in life, we run the risk of opening up these demonic portals. So there's an answer. I didn't start with an answer, but now I kind of have one. Anytime we're trying to force something and really go against God's will or what was intended for us, I think we mess things up. And I think this is one of the ways we mess it up. Like, what if our actual divine children are designated to come through a certain portal or a certain wormhole? Let me see if I can pull this picture up I found earlier and show it to you guys. But that wormhole has to like line up at a certain time in space time. So you cannot go trying to force things and trying to make things happen. That's why so many men in the manosphere run into problems because they truly believe in force. Yeah, here it is. I'm just going to, let's see. Oh, I like this one too. I like them both. I'll download that one and this one because I want to show y'all this. So when you try to force things, you really run the risk of messing up your portals and all your little wormholes and stuff. And I really believe a lot of these demon inspired children are coming through some of these jacked up portals, man. I'm just setting this picture up for you guys. It's just taking a minute, probably because I'm live streaming at the same time. So it doesn't like all the extra activity. But thank you, Daniel, for the super sticker. I appreciate it. Daniel coming through, showing love. I appreciate it so much. Let me get this here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. And then I will upload it so y'all can see it. So y'all can see what I'm talking about. Boom. It's not the official photo, so it's a little bootleg, but that's okay because it's still going to teach. Boom. Download that. Then I'll upload it over here. But yes, so that's another big reason I don't believe in force. Force seems to really jack people up a lot of times. And I don't want to force things. I want them to happen naturally and as they are designed and planned to happen. So here's the picture I found earlier, right? So when I say, what if our actual children who are scheduled to come have to be lined up at a certain place in time, space, in space time? And when we go trying to force this relationship and force this and force that and make that happen and force it to work, we're basically glitching out and messing up our wormholes and greatly increasing the likelihood that we're going to get a demon to come through one of these portals by mistake. Because that would be exactly what they want. Keep in mind, they're very much into chaos and disorder. So they would, of course, try to come through a broken or busted up wormhole. That's probably the only way they can get through. But anyway, it's a conversation I was thinking about. It came out of last night's show. Can we accidentally portal in these demons by mistake? Or portal in these fallen angels by mistake. So it says people say this picture is a representation of our world and the earth being at the center. This one here. I believe it. And then souls like come in, they enter in the top and then exit out of the bottom. Who knows? Who knows what is going on with this wacky place, man? Like, I honestly spend so much time thinking about things like this in the universe, outer space, what's out there, who made us, why did they make us, what happens after all of this. Another question I think about often is, if my parents had decided not to have me, would I have still been born? And you guys, I think the answer to that question is yes. I think the answer is yes for all of us. So you might think you were a chance birth or a one-off, or some of your parents may have even called you a mistake. But I personally believe we were going to be born anyway. So, you know, those of you who might have been like, man, I wish my mom had just left my dad, or I wish my dad had just left my mom and they had never had me, I think you would have been born just somewhere else. I really do. And that leads me to believe that our life here on this earth is almost like mandatory, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think you would have had the option of not existing. I think you existing was mandatory. And you were either going to come through your parents or somebody else's. And I don't think you would have had the option of being like an animal or a plant or something. I think you were destined to be a human being. I think that's a different conversation, though. I think that's a different show. So let me get my thoughts together on that show, and we'll do that show over here another day. Basically, we had no choice but to be born, and the whys behind all of that. So I find this stuff fascinating. I'm glad we're getting back to these topics on this channel. But this is something that I really, really think about. Are we possibly dealing with the fallen angels? It certainly requires a belief in God, a belief in angels, a belief in the spiritual realm. If you believe in none of those things, then you'll just think we're dealing with textbook psychopaths, which we are. But you would have to wonder, what would make a person go against life so strongly, work so hard against life, work overtime against life itself, know something is wrong and does the wrong thing anyway, so committed and has a very strong campaign against the woman? Why? Why so much hostility toward the female and towards the feminine entity? And on top of that, why do they pick it up so easily and so fast and so readily? There's like no resistance to it. I heard one man on someone's show the other day, he called in and he was like, yeah, well, I finally left the manosphere because I realized that when they were talking about what they do to women or think about women, they were basically lumping my daughter into that category too. And he was like, and I have a daughter and I wouldn't want her treated that way. And I realized that when they're talking about women, they're talking about her too. And it's like, ding, 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 ding. It took all that for you to realize that, which leads me to believe that a lot of them really don't see us as human, which I've said before, though. A lot of them really don't see or regard us as human beings. They really don't think we're human. They think that I don't think that they think we're subhuman. I think they think we're suprahuman or superhuman, basically. They don't think we're subhuman like they like to claim. I actually think they think we're superhuman. And they don't want to admit that. But I think they are absolutely terrified at the fact that you can literally manufacture life out of your own body. You can manufacture life. You can start off at month zero, day zero, with a completely flat stomach. And 9 or 10 months later, your whole body has set itself up to carry a new human being that you then push out or have a C-section to remove from your body, and you survive and the baby survives most of the time. All things going well, all things, you know, going as they should. You survived that experience, and so did the baby. That's freaky. That's freaky, you know? And it's kind of like, wow, I thought I knew you, but I just saw what you did there. And now I'm scared. Ooh, the chat says their egos cannot handle our magic. Absolutely. And in many ways, they want that magic for themselves. They want to be special in that way. See, that's kind of what led them to the fall in the first place. They didn't realize that they were special to God. They didn't realize that just because your role is different does not mean you're not important. Just because you're not the one in charge doesn't mean that your role is not equally as important. They couldn't handle that, and they could not accept that either. Like, in God's kingdom, everything has a place and everything has its proper order. Just look at your body. Absolutely everything on your body has a purpose. I was going to say for the most part, but I'm going to say period. Everything, every cell in your body has a purpose. And sure, some cells organize to form the heart and some cells organize to form the brain, but ultimately you're all important. Do you want to give up any of your cells? Like a significant chunk? Probably not. Like, you would probably much prefer to have every single cell that you're supposed to have in place, functioning as it should. You have problems when one group of cells decides they're more important than those cells over there, and they want to go start taking them over. It's the same problem every time. The same problem is, I don't like my position. I don't like my role. I don't like my station that I've been assigned. I want more. So instead of me just accepting the role I've been given and being happy, I'm going to go try to take more than I'm owed, and I'm going to go try to take more than is due to me. And ultimately, what that does is disrupt the body. And if it continues on, it will destroy the body. So essentially, the Lord did not allow this little infection to destroy the kingdom of heaven. So she kicked it out. They fell down to earth, and then they terrorized her image every day since then. Everything and everyone that reminds them of her, they terrorize. Chat says the hatred of women is the rejection of divinity. Absolutely. And it's so ill-placed and misplaced. And it makes you scratch your head like, wow, why are you so angry at women? Did you have one breakup? Do you know how much heartache women have to go through dating and dealing with these men? And we literally have to like recover and recoup from heartbreaks and heartaches and things of that nature. But they don't think that that exists with us, y'all. They don't think our hearts can be broken, which is why they have no problem breaking them. They don't think that we hurt or can feel hurt regarding a man, which is why they have no problem hurting, because they don't think we actually feel anything in regard to them. They don't think that we have the capacity for love, which I believe is something that they lack. So, because they lack the capacity for true love, they don't think we have it either. And I think this is why a lot of couples who have children and then break up, I believe personally that this is what happens. Your capacity for true love comes out. So I'll never forget, he's not a friend anymore so much, but an associate of mine was telling me about, his new daughter that they had just had. And I think she was maybe like 3 or 4 months old. And the mom had gone to the grocery store or something, and he was on daddy duty. And they're married, but he was doing daddy duty. And I don't know why he felt compelled to tell me this. I don't know why people feel compelled to tell me a lot of things, but they do. And he was like, "Yeah, and, I had her or whatever, and I'm watching her, and she starts crying. So I went and I gave her a bottle or whatever, and she took the bottle, but then she kept crying. So then I went to make sure she wasn't dirty. It didn't need to be changed. She didn't need to be changed or anything. So, she was good there, but she kept crying. And so then, I picked her up and I was like rocking her and everything, and she's still crying. So then I put her back down and I called my wife. And my wife was like, "Oh, she'll be fine. Just talk to her, blah, blah, blah." So when I got off the phone with my wife, I just, I don't know why, but I just yelled at her. And I was like, "Oh my God, shut up. Stop crying." And y'all, like I was like, "Oh my God." I didn't say that, but in my mind, I'm like, "Oh my God." Because I never even would have thought that he had that kind of side to him. And again, had no idea why he was even telling me this. I didn't ask. Like, I didn't ask, like, "Hey, have you ever yelled at your kid for crying?" Like, I didn't ask. I think I just said, "How's the baby?" I think that was my question. "How's the baby?" And he got to telling me this story, and chat says, "Wow, PTE, perhaps you have Pluto in a prominent position in your birth chart. It's the energy that compels people to confess." Honey, something is on me because all I said was, "How's the baby?" And he tells me the story about how he basically lost his temper. Now, he did tell me he felt bad about it. Afterward, he said, "I felt so bad about it." And I'm thinking in my mind, you should. She's a baby. But this is what happens behind closed doors in these married couples, honey. You get to see somebody's capacity for true love. Here's a 3-month-old baby. She's brand new to the world. Babies scream and cry for no reason. And it's almost like I've done everything that's supposed to make you stop crying. You didn't. And I yelled at her. And I just felt so bad for her. I almost felt bad for him. But in a way, it helped me see how the male mind works. It's like input in, input out. Baby cry, feed baby. Baby still cry. Change baby. Baby clean. Okay, baby still cry. Pick baby up. Rock baby. Baby still cry. Baby should have stopped cry by now. Now me get big mad. Big mad. Stop cry. You stop crying. That's how it goes. I'm telling you, versus the mom, who is not that the mother is not frustrated by the baby's tears, but the mom will just sit there and just hold the baby. If she's done everything, if she's fed the baby, change the baby, pick the baby up and the baby's still crying, sometimes they'll just sit there and hold them while they cry, honey. They might start singing to them, rocking them. If you got a rocking chair, you might just start rocking them and you just accept the fact that right now the baby is crying, but also making sure nothing is wrong too, though. Like, does she have an ear infection? Making sure everything is okay. Because why are you still crying, honey? Are you okay? No, you just upset about life? Me too, honey. Let's just sit here and cry together. A mom will sit there and cry with you. Just rock you. You crying, I'm crying, me and the baby are crying. Okay? Leave us alone. Bring us some snacks or leave us alone, okay? I could picture my husband walking in saying, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah." Like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "She's crying." Like, "So you just cry with her?" "Sure." But it just made me so sad for the baby. And I'm sure he's gotten better. I kind of lost touch with this individual. I hope he's gotten better because babies don't get less cry-y. Like they just whine sometimes. Babies just whine for no reason. Mm. Chat says these moments add up to complex trauma. It's so important to learn how to emotionally regulate before having children. Absolutely. And I think the reason I share that story with you guys and the reason I found it so shocking was because I never would have expected that out of this particular person. Never. I'd never seen him lose his temper before, ever. Like, we were pretty close friends, and he used to confess pretty much everything to me. He told me everything. That's part of the reason I kind of know the inner workings of male minds. Men love to confess to me, honey. He's not the only one who's ever confessed. He isn't. So many of them have just told me. They just spew it out. It just comes out of them for some reason. So I get a lot of the inner workings of their logic and things from those confessions. So in all of that, I had never seen or heard him lose his temper in any way. But the first time I ever saw it is because he couldn't get his baby to stop crying. And I just remember thinking, good Lord, you don't really know somebody till you've seen them in all kinds of different circumstances. And I don't want y'all to think I'm judging him harshly. He had a human moment, and he didn't have to tell me. He didn't have to confess that to me. But I think it startled me because it kind of helped me understand what happens sometimes when you find out about people shaking babies. And I had always heard about that, even growing up. Like, it was a huge campaign, like in the 80s and 90s. Don't shake your baby. Do y'all remember that? Does anyone remember that campaign from the 80s and 90s where they were basically trying to teach people how to be patient with their children and just put them down? Like, just lay them in their crib, just lay them down and walk away, take a breather. Do y'all remember that? Well, I remember thinking to myself at the time, wow, who is out here shaking their babies like that? Oh my God, what psychopaths. But then to hear my friend basically confess to him snapping at his 3-month-old, I was like, this is how it happens. Oh my God. Oh, wow. This is how it happens. Just like this. A perfectly normal, by all accounts, sane, rational person snaps because they can't get this thing to do what it's supposed to do in this very moment. No patience. No patience and no understanding either. And that's how it ends up happening. So I don't know. It just really stuck with me. It really, really did. Because I never would have pegged him as that type of person. And I think a lot of women don't peg these men as that type of person or those type of people. But I am happy to report the child is alive and well. And she seems happy enough from the pictures I see. So, you know, and again, he did express remorse. He felt bad about it. So I think that's positive. I'm glad he wasn't like, yeah, I yelled at her and she kept crying, by the way. She didn't stop crying after he yelled at her. She kept crying. But at least he wasn't like, yeah, I yelled at her and she kept crying. So I just kept yelling until she stopped. No, he actually felt bad, but whew, like it gave me chills, like, man. And the mom is at the grocery store and she doesn't even know her baby just got yelled at. So I don't know, you guys, but it is a theory that I have. And just to give a quick summary rundown before we wrap up here, the question of the evening, are we dealing with the fallen angels? This theory is based on their behavior, the way that they act, traits including desperation, anger, performative. Oh, I never got into the performative. Performative is they're kind of acting, trying to act their way back into heaven. So pretending to be this or pretending to be that, basically putting on a performance in hopes of being accepted again, but never really actually planning on changing the root cause of the behavior or changing the root problem. That's what I meant by performative. But a certain begging and pleading about them, the need to parasite off women that they also hate, basically acting like they're starving to death without the presence of a woman, to the point where they can be driven to behaviors like stalking and worse. Super desperate, constantly surrounding themselves with images of the woman. They have this obsession with the woman. Then we got into the reasons why they, I believe personally, got kicked out of heaven: the treason, the treachery, the jealousy, the just total loss of trust from someone who truly loved and trusted you. And they're also unrepentant, and they hate the one that makes the rules because ultimately they want to be the rule makers. And this is why I so strongly believe God is a woman. They do not want to be under a woman in any capacity. The idea that a woman rules over them or would rule over them makes them sick to their stomach. They would rather go to hell than be ruled over by a woman. And many of them are going to go to hell rather than be ruled over by a woman. They get to go be ruled over by their father, Satan, who's going to treat them terribly because he treats them terribly now. He just uses them for his purposes. And then as soon as he's done using them, he discards them because he doesn't love his kids. And the violation itself was so great, they can never be trusted again. You basically wrecked God's perfect vision of life and what life should be and how the world could be. You wrecked it. And you wrecked it so badly and so thoroughly, you can never be trusted to come back again ever. And they have no laws about themselves or morals because they have absolutely nothing to lose because they know they're not getting back in. Then we transitioned into a conversation about portals and whether or not we are accidentally portaling in demons and what, if anything, can be done to avoid that. And essentially, what we came up with was trying hard not to force things to happen, because when you force things, you essentially distort your wormhole. Oh, we got deep tonight. You essentially throw your wormhole out of whack and you cause the top part to be like off to the side, and all kinds of bad things happen when that happens. So we talked about that a little bit. And then we just kind of closed out with some other thoughts that I can't wait to go listen back to because I've already forgotten them. They were truly inspired because I already forgot what I just got through talking about for the past 10 or 15 minutes. So I look forward to listening to this playback. But with that, you guys, that is pretty much it. I very much look forward to reading all of your comments once they upload to YouTube, which could take 24 hours. So if you come back looking for the live chat and it's not here within the next 24 hours, the video is not done processing. Also, let me tell you this. If you want to come back to this video, save it now. Put it in your watch later playlist or put it in some playlist, because when the video is processing, sometimes it disappears from YouTube. Why? I don't know, but it will disappear for 24 hours. The only way you can work your way back to it is if you have a link to it. Okay. So save it now. And those of you on the mailing list, you have that link in the email, so you can also get back to it that way. But I just want y'all to know that if you go looking for it, you can't find it. It disappears sometimes for 24 hours, then reappears at the same time the live chat reappears. Okay. But I don't know what we're dealing with, you guys, but I'm always interested in exploring the deeper side of things and seeing if we can at least come up with some answers or at minimum some stimulating conversation. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the show and we will talk again very, very, very soon. Okay. Bye.